Much of Camp Mystic was in a special flood hazard area until camp owners asked FEMA to redraw its maps. Records show FEMA did just that several times over the past dozen years. Investigative reporter Jeremy Rogowski continuing our team coverage with a closer look tonight. Jeremy?
Well, then under the law, Camp Mystic had a right to appeal FEMA's floodplain map just like any other property owner. But with hundreds of young campers at risk year after year, one expert says it's surprising and bothersome.
A dozen years before the devastating floods swept so many away, the owners of Camp Mystic submitted this to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, a letter of map revision, asking to remove 15 buildings from the 100-year floodplain. FEMA granted Camp Mystic's request.
You would think that at a camp for young people, they would be particularly cautious, certainly about the risk of flooding.
Instead, Camp Mystic made other requests to remove 15 other buildings in 2019 and 2020. Again, FEMA approved those appeals and revised its map.
In other words, the buildings aren't being removed physically, but they're being drawn out of the official 100-year flood zone.
Syracuse University professor Sarah Prowley says properties outside the 100-year floodplain do not have to buy mandatory flood insurance and are not subject to stricter building codes.
But the structures are still there and still at risk for flooding, oftentimes very high risk.
This map shows just how close many of Camp Mystic's cabins are to the shaded areas in blue, FEMA's current 100-year flood zone.
The lowest point in those areas was sometimes a foot above the base flood elevation. That's not a lot of room for error.
Now, Camp Mystic did not return our emails seeking comment. Meantime, a FEMA spokesperson tells me that its maps are not predictions of where it will flood and do not show where it has flooded before. Rather, they are designed to show minimum standards for floodplain management and the highest risk areas for flood insurance. Len?
Update story tonight. Jeremy, thank you. We know so many lives impacted in the Hill Country floods. And a reminder, the Tegna Texas Relief Fund is a way for you to help in the relief efforts. Scan the QR code right there on your screen to make a tax-deductible donation. You should know all of the money, 100%, will go directly to local nonprofits in flood-impacted areas.